Cancel culture strikes again, this time in St. John's, Michigan, where the owners of a bed and breakfast have decided they've got to get rid of their Norwegian flag, celebrating their Scandinavian heritage from the front of their establishment, because passersby were accusing them of flying the Confederate flag. You can see the two there on the screen. Let's talk about what's happening in free speech in America with the professor of jurisprudence at Princeton University, Robert George. Good to have you back, Professor.
Such a joy to be back with you, Shannon. Thanks for inviting me back onto the show.
Okay, so I want to read something, a local report there from the B&B owners. What we're getting is so much more negative now, she said. It's not just, hey, you're flying the Confederate flag. It's, you should be ashamed to fly the Confederate flag. You're a bigot because you fly the Confederate flag. And it goes on to say some people accuse the home of being built by the Confederacy, but it was actually built by union workers at the time. There's no connection here. But this is a private business now, Professor, that's one of many that's, frightened into taking down something that's perfectly legal and not offensive, because people are so upset these days about, it seems, nearly everything.
Yes, it's a combination of a very bad attitude and a great deal of ignorance. You would think that Americans would be able to tell what is and isn't a Confederate flag, even if it's a flag that in some ways resembles a Confederate flag. You don't expect them necessarily to know what the Norwegian flag looks like. They should be able to tell it's not a Confederate flag. That's ignorance. But look at how quickly people just turned to outrage and tried to shut these people down because they thought they had broken the rule against wrongthink or wrong speak or wrong expression or whatever you want to call it. Shannon, I have a good friend who's an academic out in California. He does a podcast. And the music for one of his podcasts was the great Union hymn, The Battle Cry of Freedom. Well, there, some ignorant people mistook it for Dixie, thought that the music was celebrating the South and therefore celebrating slavery, and caused a big ruckus, tried to get him disciplined by his university, until finally they figured out that it wasn't Dixie at all, although he would have had a perfect right to play Dixie if he wanted to, but was actually a Union hymn, the Battle Cry of Freedom. So the combination of malice and ignorance is really toxic.
Well, Professor, you've said it is very easy to defend the concept of free speech, but it's when speech is out there that you don't like or that the dominant groupthink doesn't like. That's when it gets real about what people really think about defending speech. Because listen, we don't have the First Amendment to protect things that are wonderful and rosy and we all like. It's out there to protect offensive speech. We don't have to agree with it, but that doesn't mean we get to silence it.
That's exactly right. And I have very often spoken up in defense of the free speech rights of people that I strongly agree with. Temple University was under pressure to discipline Mark Lamont Hill for some statements that I very strongly disagreed with, but I nevertheless threatened to myself lead a protest, a conservative. Can you imagine leading a protest in defense of the free speech rights of the very progressive Mark Lamont Hill? Because he has every bit as much free speech right as I have, or as anybody else has. I've done the same with my colleague at Princeton, Peter Singer, who has views on life issues that are abominable to me. He supports not only the killing of unborn children, but the moral permissibility of the killing of newborn children. Well, infanticide is just a horror in my view. I fight it with every ounce that I have of energy in my body. And yet I recognize that, as reprehensible as I think that view is, he has a right to free speech. The First Amendment is for all of us. It's not the property of the left. It's not the property of the right. It's not the conservatives. It's not the liberals. It's everybody's right to free speech. And so we need to protect the free speech rights and stand up for the free speech rights of those we oppose.
Yeah. I quickly want to get your take on this. The Federalist has a headline saying why electing Joe Biden will make the culture war even worse. Their theory is this: the culture war will likely escalate under a Biden presidency, as it will be the one thing Democrats will agree on. Fanning the flames will be a way to unite the Democrats who hate the rich and the Democrats who are the rich. A quick final thought from you, Professor.
Well, I'm not sure about those Democrats who allegedly hate the rich. There seem to be an awful lot of rich Democrats. Certainly the big corporations in the country seem to back the progressives when it comes to culture war issues, the big moral questions of our time, whether it's abortion and the right to life, or marriage and the family, whether it's religious liberty, you name it. The big money seems to come down on the left side. So I'm not sure about this thing. I guess it's a myth, really, that the Democrats are the or the party of the rich. Certainly when it comes to social issues, the rich are on the side of the Democrats and the progressives.
All right, Professor, free speech, as you say, is for all, including those who offend us the most. Thank you for weighing in. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Shannon. Thanks.